Have you ever felt the sudden fire of anger rise inside you, faster than your mind could keep up? Perhaps it was in traffic, when someone cut you off without the slightest care for your safety. Perhaps it was at home, when a loved one spoke a careless word that cut deeper than they intended. Or maybe it was at work, when a colleague dismissed your effort, leaving you feeling unappreciated and invisible. In those moments, the red haze takes over. Words spill out, sharp and heavy, unplanned and uncontrolled. Sometimes silence replaces words, a cold storm of resentment that changes the entire atmosphere. Either way, what follows is the same: regret. Why does anger seem to control us instead of us controlling it? This question has echoed through human history. Kings, generals, philosophers, and ordinary people all have struggled with the same fire that threatens to consume reason. We often imagine anger makes us powerful, as though it shields us from harm or disrespect. But the truth is very different. Anger does not make us stronger. It makes us weaker. It blinds us to reason, enslaves our judgment, and leaves us vulnerable to mistakes we would never commit in calmness. The Stoics saw this truth clearly. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, each warned that unchecked anger is not a weapon, but a chain. When anger takes hold, freedom is lost. To live with clarity and dignity, one must learn how to break free from that grip. But before we speak of solutions, we must look closely at the problem itself. We must face anger in its rawest form. If we rush past this step, we will never understand why it controls us so deeply and why it is so difficult to resist. Think back to your own life. Recall a single moment when anger rose and you gave into it. Maybe it was small, a quick outburst in traffic. Maybe it was larger, a fight with someone you love. Ask yourself, did anger truly make you stronger? Or did it leave you with regret, with tension, with damage that took time to repair? The truth is simple, though it is hard to accept. Anger feels powerful, but it is a thief. It steals our peace, it clouds our judgment, and it robs us of dignity. Picture this instead. You are standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves are violent, crashing against the shore with relentless force. This ocean is your anger. Most people, when facing such waves, fight against them directly. They thrash and struggle, but the water is stronger. Eventually, it pulls them under. The Stoics taught a different way. They advised us not to fight the waves, but to step back and watch, to allow the water to rise and fall without surrendering our balance. When we stop feeding the storm within, the ocean of anger loses its power. This is the path we are beginning together. A path that shows anger not as an unstoppable force, but as an emotion we can understand, master, and ultimately transform. Hold on to this thought. Anger is not strength, calmness is. Anger is not control, restraint is. And the one who conquers himself is greater than the one who conquers an empire. So let me ask you once more. When anger rises in your chest, will you be its servant or its master? Sit with that question for a moment. Let it linger. Because everything that follows, every reflection, every exercise, every piece of Stoic wisdom begins with this truth. Anger controls us only because we allow it to. And if we allow it, we can also learn to take the control back. This is where the journey begins. Anger is one of the most destructive emotions that dwells within us. It rises suddenly, often faster than thought itself, and it lingers long after its spark has passed. It can erupt in an instant, yet the damage it causes may last for years. Seneca once observed, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." And how true that is. The insult, the slight, the unfairness, they may sting for a moment, but the anger they awaken can wound us far more deeply, leading us to words, actions, and choices that we later wish we could erase. Think of how anger changes the way we see the world. It places a red lens over the mind, distorting everything. A small inconvenience feels like a personal attack. A careless word feels like a deliberate betrayal. And suddenly, we find ourselves lost in a storm that is more of our own making than the result of what was done to us. Look at our world today. A single careless comment on social media can ignite outrage, spreading across thousands of people in moments. Political disagreements quickly collapse into shouting matches, where no one listens and everyone assumes the worst. Even in ordinary life, in homes and workplaces, small frustrations grow into conflicts that poison relationships. And yet this is not a modern problem. History is filled with stories of anger destroying leaders and nations alike. Gladiators lost their lives in fits of rage. Soldiers, blinded by fury, rushed into battles they could not win. Emperors, consumed by wrath, ruined their reigns and erased their legacies. Time and again, anger has undone the mighty and crushed the ordinary. So the question returns with even greater weight. If anger is such a common part of life, why does it hold such power over us? Why does something so natural so often lead us into destruction? Part of the answer lies in the way anger behaves. It does not arrive quietly. It explodes. It takes over body and mind, making us feel alive, alert, powerful, even righteous. But this feeling is a trick. The fire of anger blinds us. It convinces us that losing control is the same as gaining strength. And like fire, the more we feed it, the more it spreads, consuming everything around it. We often believe that venting our anger releases it, that shouting or striking out empties it from us. But anger is not released in this way. It is multiplied. Each harsh word, each act of rage, adds fuel to the blaze. Instead of being freed from anger, we become bound even tighter by it. The Stoics never denied that anger is natural. They knew it rises in all of us. But they also knew that natural does not mean harmless. We are not meant to be dragged by every impulse that appears. Nature gave us reason, perspective, and choice, tools to rise above the fire rather than be consumed by it. This is what makes anger so dangerous. It disguises itself as strength. In reality, it is weakness. It clouds judgment, destroys trust, and leaves us less than we were before. And if we wish to free ourselves, we must look deeper. We must uncover the hidden roots of anger, the instincts in our biology, the traps in our psychology, and the false beliefs we carry that make rage feel like power. Only then will we see clearly why anger so often rules us and how we can take that rule back. We have seen how anger behaves, quick to rise, slow to fade, destructive in its wake. But why does it control us so easily? Why does this fire feel stronger than our will? Part of the answer lies deep in our biology. Anger is tied to the ancient instincts of survival. When our ancestors faced danger, their bodies prepared for conflict. The heart raced, blood surged, muscles tensed, vision sharpened. This response, fight or flight, gave them strength to face threats. Even today, when someone insults us, when we feel disrespected or betrayed, the body still reacts as though it is under attack. Adrenaline floods our system, preparing us to fight. But here is the trap. Most of the things that spark our anger are not life or death battles. They are inconveniences, disagreements, words. Yet the body does not know the difference. It prepares for war even when all that happened was a careless remark. Then comes the psychological snare. Anger gives us a sudden rush of energy, a sense of control, a feeling of being powerful. In that moment, we believe we are standing taller, stronger, unshaken. But this is only an illusion. The more we trust that feeling, the more we hand over control to the very force that blinds us. The Stoics warned against this illusion. Epictetus taught that events themselves do not disturb us. It is our judgments about them that stir our emotions. It is not the insult that angers us, but the meaning we attach to it. It is not the delay in traffic, but our belief that it should not happen. The world does not wound us as much as the story we tell ourselves about the world. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. Each morning, He reminded himself that he would meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the selfish. He did not pretend otherwise. He did not expect the world to be free of such people. Instead, he prepared himself to meet them calmly, with reason rather than rage. He chose to see their behavior not as a personal attack, but as the product of their ignorance, their weakness, their humanity. And here is the heart of it. Anger controls us not because it is stronger, but because we surrender so quickly. We assume the insult must wound us. We assume betrayal must consume us. We assume every setback is an attack on our worth. These assumptions hand the keys of our mind to anger, letting it lead us wherever it pleases. But if we step back, if we pause and question, the chain begins to loosen. We see the surge of emotion for what it is: a reflex, a trick of the body, a story of the mind. We recognize that the event itself has no power, only the meaning we attach to it. And in that recognition, freedom begins to return. So the real question is not whether anger will rise. It will. The question is, when it comes, will we feed its illusion of strength, or will we choose to see it clearly for what it is? To break free, we must learn to challenge anger at its roots. We must resist the false promise of power, the instinct that mistakes words for weapons, the judgment that turns inconvenience into insult. Only then can we begin to loosen the grip of anger, and only then can we take the first step toward mastering it. Anger binds us like chains. It tightens its grip with every unguarded reaction, every careless word, every moment we surrender reason to impulse. Yet the Stoics remind us, these chains are not unbreakable. They can be undone, one link at a time, through conscious practice and inner discipline. The first link breaks in the pause. Anger thrives on speed. It urges us to strike before we think. But when we insert even a moment between stimulus and response, we weaken its hold. As wisdom teaches, if you are patient in one moment of anger, you will escape 100 days of sorrow. In that pause, we can count our breaths, recall our principles, and give reason the space it needs to guide us. Another link falls when we remember the boundary of control. Insults, betrayals, the moods of others, these lie beyond our command. But interpretation and response remain within our grasp. Seneca observed, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Anger often springs not from the act itself, but from the story we attach to it. By changing the story, we reclaim our freedom. The chains weaken further when we shift perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Most of what stirs our fury today dissolves into irrelevance tomorrow. And when we remember our mortality, memento mori, the urgency of rage shrinks even more. Life is too brief, too precious, to waste in the service of anger. The final link does not simply break, it transforms. Anger is energy, and energy can be redirected. Instead of lashing outward, we can turn it inward, using it to fuel discipline, patience, and endurance. True strength is revealed not in retaliation, but in calm restraint. To remain steady in the face of provocation is not weakness, it is mastery. Step by step, chain by chain, the Stoic path leads us out of captivity, not by suppressing what we feel, but by transforming it into wisdom and strength. Wisdom remains theory until it is practiced. The Stoics knew that philosophy is not merely to be admired, it is to be lived. And when it comes to anger, mastery does not arrive through words alone, but through daily exercises that train the mind to remain steady when provoked. Begin with the simplest and most powerful habit, the pause. Anger is impatient. It demands immediate action. To resist, count 10 breaths before responding. Feel each inhale and exhale as if you are calming a wild horse before mounting it. The image is vivid. Anger is raw energy, but unless tamed, it throws us to the ground. The pause gives us the reins, turning chaos into control. Next, practice negative visualization. Imagine the worst that could happen, then notice how small your present irritation truly is. An insult fades into nothing when compared with true loss. A delayed train, a harsh comment online, a thoughtless gesture, all shrink when placed beside illness, death, or the collapse of fortune. By widening perspective, you weaken anger's grip. What once seemed unbearable becomes almost laughable. Another tool is the journal. Each evening, write down the moments when anger rose within you. Ask yourself, was this truly worth my peace? What judgment did I make that turned this moment into an injury? Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to see that anger rarely springs from others, but from within, shaped by your own expectations and assumptions. In recognizing these patterns, you loosen anger's hold and train yourself to respond differently the next time. Finally, use the minor annoyances of daily life as your training ground. Traffic jams, long lines, spilled coffee, delays. These are not obstacles but opportunities. If you can remain patient with the small things, you build the strength to face greater challenges without losing composure. Each act of kindness, each choice to remain calm in the face of trivial frustrations, becomes a rehearsal for the larger trials of life. Through these exercises, anger is no longer your master. With steady practice, the flame that once consumed your clarity becomes a controlled light, guiding you with patience, strength, and wisdom. When anger loosens its grip, the mind begins to clear. No longer blinded by the haze of rage, you see things as they are, not as your emotions distort them. Clarity returns, and with it comes better judgment. What once felt like a crisis is revealed as a passing inconvenience. What once seemed an insult becomes only words. By mastering anger, you gain back the sharpness of perception that fury always seeks to steal. The effects reach beyond your own mind. In relationships, patience becomes a shield that protects what anger would destroy. Harsh words can leave scars that last longer than any wound. But when you meet conflict with calm, you preserve trust, respect, and love. A single moment of restraint can save years of regret, and those around you begin to feel safer, freer, and more understood in your presence. Mastering anger also brings emotional freedom. No longer chained to the moods of others, you stop living at the mercy of insults, betrayals, or careless remarks. The world may throw its storms at you, but they do not move you from your ground. This independence is a form of quiet power, the ability to remain steady while others are tossed about. True strength lies here. Outbursts are not signs of control, but of weakness. Calmness, on the other hand, is command over oneself. It is easier to shout, to strike, to retaliate. It is far harder to stand firm, to smile in the face of insult, to answer cruelty with patience. In restraint, you show mastery. In fury, only surrender. History makes this contrast clear. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the weight of an empire, chose composure even when surrounded by arrogance and betrayal. He reminded himself daily of human flaws, and by doing so, he ruled with reason instead of rage. Others, like Nero, surrendered to anger and suspicion, destroying themselves and those around them in a storm of violence. One path leads to ruin, the other to resilience. When anger is mastered, you are no longer its prisoner. You become its master, and in that mastery, the mind, the heart, and the soul find freedom. When the storm of anger has passed and the air clears, the question remains, when anger comes again, will you be its servant or its master? Each of us will face moments where fury calls out, demanding that we surrender. Yet within us lies the choice, and it is in that choice that freedom begins. Anger is natural, but it is not inevitable. It rises like fire, but it is we who decide whether to let it burn uncontrolled or to turn its flame into light. The Stoics remind us that wisdom is not found in extinguishing emotion entirely, but in guiding it, shaping it, and refusing to let it command us. When fury strikes, we can transform it into clarity, turning a destructive blaze into a steady lamp that illuminates the path forward. Strength is not shown in conquering others, in raising your voice higher, or in striking back with sharper words. Strength is found in conquering yourself, to remain steady while provoked, to stay silent when insulted, to act with reason when pushed toward madness. This is true power. The strongest person is not the one who bends others to their will, but the one who bends themselves toward wisdom. In this way, anger ceases to be a chain and becomes instead a lesson. Each moment of provocation is a chance to rise above, a chance to practice mastery, a chance to prove that you belong not to anger, but to yourself. And in that mastery, you discover what it means to live with clarity, calm, and unshakable strength. Think back for a moment to a time when anger spoke for you. Perhaps it was in an argument with someone you care about, or in a brief flash of rage at a stranger, or even in silence when you carried the fire inside long after the moment had passed. Ask yourself honestly, what did that anger bring you? Did it give you strength, or did it take something away? Now imagine how differently that moment might have unfolded if you had paused, if you had remembered your own power to choose, if you had met the fire with calm instead of surrender. These reflections are not meant to judge you, but to remind you. Every person knows anger, and every person has the power to meet it differently. The Stoics offer us not abstract ideals, but practical wisdom, a way to step into life with steadier hands and a clearer mind. The question is not whether anger will come, it always will, but whether you will let it rule you when it does. If this has stirred something in you, take a moment to share your own thoughts. What was one time in your life when anger controlled you, and how might you face it differently now? By sharing, you may discover clarity not only for yourself, but for others who walk the same path. And if these words have helped you find even a little calm in a restless world, then carry them with you. Let them remind you that clarity, patience, and strength are always within reach. If you wish to walk further into these ideas, stay close. There is always more wisdom to uncover, more lessons to practice, more light to carry into the dark. In the end, remember this: the world will always test you, but no one can chain your mind unless you hand them the key.